Welcome, Kindreds. It's Jessica with your tarot and astrology reading for the Scorpio New Moon. The New Moon is taking place on the 1st of November, 12:47 for me in the UK. It'll be different time-wise depending on where you are in the world, although the New Moon point is the same, happening at the same time for us all over the world. Obviously, because we're in different human assigned time zones, it works out slightly differently. This new moon is happening, like I said, on the 1st of November, and it is going to be in play because the new moon is a birth chart. It's the start of the whole next cycle. This Scorpio new moon is going to be in play until we get to the following new moon, which is on the 1st of December. So it's for the whole of November. This new moon is in play. So it's kind of like a coinciding reading for November as well. I did do a full astrology forecast with some tarot as well for November. So it's funny how sometimes the moons do kind of like sync up with our calendar months as well. So this is kind of looking more at the specific of this moon. But a lot of these aspects are things that I've been talking about as well in the astrology forecast. So let's dive into the reading. I'm looking at it in my honeycomb planner. I did do a video showing this planner recently. I'll link that for you. But it doesn't matter if you don't understand this or if you are looking at it in a different place. I'm just using this as a visual aid so I can talk about what are the energies. And this is quite a strange and kind of like underworldy, otherworldly kind of moon. Like it makes sense in a lot of ways because it is the Scorpio new moon. So every time we get to this point in the year, especially if you're in the northern hemisphere, when it's getting darker, it's getting colder, we are approaching Samhain, we're approaching Halloween, or however you call that kind of period of time when it feels like that. Like people talk about the veil being thin, between the worlds at this time. Like personally, I don't know if like it's my own personal astrology definitely leads into this, but the veil's pretty thin for me all the time. So I'm not sure if like how that is experienced by other people, but I do notice that especially like dreams and things like that, there's lots of messages coming through at that time. So I think that might be why people talk about this as being a time when that veil between the worlds does become just like as if like the layers of fabric have got a little bit thinner. It's kind of like gossamery, so we can see through it. And I love the thinking about the veil not as like a thing that screens off, but it's more something like alluring, something that draws us in as well, so that we can see, we can engage with mystery, because in our modern world we don't get a lot of opportunity to engage with mystery because we want everything to be like crystal clear and fact checked and scientifically double-blind trials proven. And this moon and this month is not about that. It is about engaging with those things that are a little bit more nebulous, engaging with those things that are unseen, those parts of us inside us that are unseen and kind of strange, and also in the world around us as well. Be like kind of seeing with different eyes in a way, or maybe thinking about that metaphor of the veil as being like we can push that veil aside and see in a slightly different way through this cycle. And the reason that I'm saying this, we've got our sun and moon here together in Scorpio. We've also got Mercury in Scorpio. So when we have Mercury, sort of like it's not super close, it is separated away from the sun and moon, but it is still in the same sign. So when Mercury goes through Scorpio, I find people tend to have that more like underworldy communication. Like I said, dreams and things can be like that you will have been experiencing that already, extra communication perhaps from loved ones that have passed on as well, like when you see things and it just makes you think of like a past loved one, and that they're communicating with you. When Mercury's going through Scorpio, I find that those things are even more so than usual, and we've just got to kind of keep our eyes open to see it. So yeah, we've got Sun, Moon and Mercury all there in Scorpio. And the big kind of thing that is affecting this moon, affecting this whole moon cycle, affecting this whole month, is we've got Mars and Pluto here in opposite signs as well. So the reason this is so important as well at this new moon is because Scorpio is a Mars-ruled sign. Mars is ruling this sign, and Mars is currently in Cancer. It is still direct at the moment of this new moon, but it will soon be retrograding. So it's going to go into Leo, into the next sign, and then it is going to retrograde back into Cancer. So it's kind of slowing down. It's taking like a longer It seems to be like traveling slower through the sky at the moment, because it is starting to slow down, ready to retrograde. And so yeah, Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, and Mars and Scorpio is like, what does that mean? What is that all about? And Mars in Scorpio likes to dive really deep. It is fixed waters, that kind of deep pool, that pool of intuition, that pool of kind of like shadow as well. Sometimes, you know, like sometimes things like emerge out of the water, and sometimes those things are beautiful things, and sometimes those things are monsters, you know. So this time of year generally is normally a shadow worky kind of time, you know, and that is no accident that it aligns in a lot of cultures with festivals to do with the dead around this time, you know. So we are kind of getting to the bottom of things. Mars in Scorpio is kind of like an investigator, and so it wants to get to the bottom of those things, but it's not getting to the bottom of them in a kind of scientific way. It's getting to them in a felt way, in a sensed way, you know. So we're being called on to kind of use our senses in a I was gonna say more sensitive, I don't know, like it's just kind of calibrating them differently, you know. So instead of like calibrating them for full sunshine or something, we calibrate for darkness now, and we start to turn in, we start to look within. So that is you know, that kind of Mars Scorpio connection. And then the modern ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, and Pluto is here opposing Mars. And like, I'm sure if you're interested in astrology, you will have seen lots of people talking about this Mars-Pluto opposition, because it's both of them are seen as like malefics in traditional astrology. Well, not in traditional astrology, because you wouldn't have talked about Pluto. Mars is seen as a malefic. Pluto is also, because it's kind of associated with death and rebirth, transformation, and with the death card in tarot, with power, and like sometimes with abuses of power, with like hoarding of power. So and Pluto, you know, is the god of the underworld, so it's associated with this kind of underworldly themes as well. So you can imagine when those two kind of forces are opposing, kind of like head to head, opposite each other, it's like a kind of challenge, it's a battle between those kind of underworldly forces and those kind of overworldly forces, but which are kind of at the moment directed towards also finding out about those underworldly things. So yeah, it's like, whichever way we look at it, we are being called now to look beyond the superficial. You know, there's nothing superficial about this moon. There's going to be nothing superficial about this month. We are going to be diving deep. We are going to be looking beyond what is usual. We will probably be receiving information from sources that are perhaps not from esoteric sources, you know, like I said, like messages from people who've passed on, dream messages. We may see omens, you know, which is like, sometimes it's hard to describe an omen, but usually you know one when you see one. Like quite often they're things in nature, you know, like you'll see like a bird, an unusual bird in a certain place or something like that, or even like they'll come into your home often, you know, or come to your home. So like you might get a bird like tapping on your window or something like that. It's like, oh, okay, that's an omen. But once you're kind of tuned into them, you can start to see them and understand them more. You know, you do notice them more as well. Not everything is an omen, though. You know, we can get a little bit carried away with it sometimes as well. But so, like, you know, keep your discernment. We do need to keep that idea of discernment as well. But just, it's a really good month for just like having a space, a journal space, or, you know, some notes somewhere where you just keep noting things down. If you see things, if you feel things, if you feel like you've received a message, just keep a note of it, and don't like judge it in a way, you know. This whole first part of this moon cycle for sure is going to be about just gathering that information, noting down that information. Not super long after this new moon, Mars is going to be changing signs. So for the first, I think it's on the 5th of November, Mars is going to be going into Leo. So that will like kind of ease off the conjunction between these two planets. So it is in play for quite a long time, because like Pluto is going to be moving into Aquarius too on the 20th. So later in the month, Pluto is going to move here. So it's kind of like the conjunction, the opposition is going to be moving. So they will still be opposing each other, but they can be opposing each other from different signs. So it's affecting both of the Saturn ruled signs. It's affecting Capricorn, it's affecting Aquarius, it's affecting Cancer, and it's affecting Leo. So, you know, it's cardinal signs, it's fixed signs, especially like people, if you're more mutable, then you're probably not going to feel this one quite as strongly, but people with a lot of cardinal and mutable signs are going to be feeling that, especially if there's those 4 signs that I've just named there, because of this, the way this conjunction is happening. Obviously, if you've also got Scorpio in your chart, you know, if you're, well, everyone's got Scorpio in the chart, but if you've got a lot of planets in Scorpio, or Scorpio is your rising sign, then you will be feeling this one quite potently, quite strongly as well. So yeah, like I said, the first 5 days of this moon cycle, just keep gathering those messages, gathering. If you see any omens, if you see any, you know, if you have dreams or anything, or if, like, sometimes it's even like, sometimes you'll be like driving behind a van that has something unusual written on the back of it, and it's like, oh, you know, it's just being open to receiving that kind of information, receiving that kind of message. And then when Mars changes signs, it probably will ease off, like I said, a little bit then, until later in the month on the 20th, when Pluto changes signs as well, and kind of like resumes that proper sign-based opposition as well. So yeah, that's the kind of like the main thing, is that kind of underworldly vibe. What's interesting though is that the Sun and the Moon are not configured really to this conjunction. Like, they are, because they're both in Mars's or potentially Pluto's sign, depending on how you're looking at it. So they are kind of coming into play with that. But what they're actually doing is trining Saturn in Pisces. So I think like these underworldly journeys I'm talking about, or otherworldly journeys and information, is about restructuring your life. It's about kind of like seeing where the structures in your life are working, and seeing where perhaps they need to start dissolving now, coming apart, so that we can, so that you can build a better foundation for you moving forward, something that fits you more moving forward. There's also like connections between, we've got Mercury here, we've got Mars here, we've got Pluto, and we've got Uranus, and they're all forming like helpful connections with each other. We've got 2 sextiles and 2 trines, so it's like they're in this like rectangle pattern with each other. So like we've got Mercury, planet of communication, we've got Mars, you know, like that motivating planet that's helping us to like get to the bottom of things, try and figure out what it is that we want, especially because it's in Cancer, especially in those realms of like nurturing. Like, how do we want to nurture ourselves? How can we best take care of ourselves? Also, it's like I said, it's connecting in with Taurus here, with Uranus in Taurus. So it's also like, how can we change, perhaps like change our routines, change our health? What is kind of like becoming untenable now? What can't we continue with? What needs to change so that we can, like I say, like build a better foundation moving forward? And all of these like connecting back up to Pluto. So like, what needs to die now? You know, what do we need to let go of in order to move forward? And so we've got that rectangle pattern. And then these planets are also linked up as well. We've got Mercury trining down here to Neptune, trining up here to Mars. So we've got this trine happening between the water signs here as well. We've got a water trine happening. So it can be a very emotional time when that is happening. Like, Mercury will be moving on a few days later into Sagittarius, so that will ease again the emotions. But around the time of this new moon, especially these first few days of November, it is going to be quite a high emotion time. And you know, we have got Neptune in here as well, so it can be like a kind of confusing time. So that's why I'm saying to kind of like gather those messages and not necessarily like sort of sift and sort and kind of get to the bottom of it straight away. Just like allow and receive for those first few days, and make a note, and then later on in the month you will be able to sort through that and start to feel like, you know, get to the bottom of it a little bit more. But just be aware that you may not your feelings will be kind of clouding our feelings, will be clouding our judgment, perhaps. You know, don't judge yet. Don't judge, just gather in this first part of the cycle. And so all of that is kind of connecting up as well. And then we've also got this this T-square happening as well. So we've got a benefic opposition. I mean, it's not exact, but it's pretty close. So we've got Venus in Jupiter's sign of Sagittarius over here, and we've got Jupiter in Gemini over here. So we've got the two benefics like facing off against each other as well. But because they're both seen as benefic, as like a kind of benevolent planets, then usually that is seen as a more supportive structure, really, as well. So what I'm seeing with this is that there's going to be a feeling of like wanting to get to like the deeper truth of the situation, and also sometimes perhaps like a little bit of escapism coming in there as well, where it's like, oh, because if we look, they're both also like squaring down here to Saturn as well. So the sun and the moon are trining Saturn, and then the two benefics are squaring Saturn. So it's as if like Saturn wants us to build structures. It wants us to kind of do the hard thing, to kind of commit to things, to kind of like grind, to work hard, you know, to do those things that play the long game, I suppose, you know. Whereas with Jupiter and Venus, they're not usually super invested in the long game. They're invested in like enjoying yourself here and now kind of thing. So there's a bit of a tension between wanting to just kind of like, oh, you know, I just want to have a nice time, and this deep inner work that is happening. And like, it doesn't have to be either or with that, but that's why it's great to have a look at this, is because we can start to think, oh, okay, like this tension is here, and so how can I like, it's okay that I'm feeling like that, you know. It's okay that I am feeling on one hand like I just want to like be like, I forget all this shadow work, I'm done with shadow work, I just want to have a nice time. I want to like explore new things, I want to try new adventures, maybe try nice new foods and things like that as well. But underneath that, there is this kind of like realization that there needs to be more new structures put into place now that are supportive. And when we have a T-square, quite often the planet that is opposite that, so like I said, we've got Venus and we've got Jupiter here, and they're squaring down here to Saturn. And then if we go opposite that and go up here, then we get to Virgo. So Virgo, mutable earth, is kind of like giving us the potential answer, the way out of the T-square. And Virgo is all about, it's about harvesting, you know. It is that, it comes at that time of the year when we're harvesting. We're kind of seeing what has gone well, and we are deciding how we're going to build on that for the future. It's also very concerned with health and with our work and our work-life balance as well, you know. So it's like sometimes Virgo can err too much towards the work and away from the play. So that's something to bear in mind as well, you know. We do need to, in this cycle, allow ourselves time to rest, to recuperate, to play, but whilst also acknowledging that there is this undercurrent of work that does need to be done, that is kind of happening. Like, things are falling away now. Things are being released from our lives that are like ultimately that's growth. You know. And then what is that saying about the trees, like in the autumn, that they teach us how to surrender, teach us how to release when they give up their leaves, you know. It's like the light is drawn in, so instead of pushing all that energy out there, we pull our energy in, and we allow parts of us to die, because we know that this is a cycle and that new life is going to come, but that new life can't come while the old growth is still there. So we release that, we pull in, we assess where we are, we receive information from those other worlds, and then we can start, when it's the time is right, after we've had that incubation time, to then begin to put forth new leaves again in the spring. Does that make sense? I mean, you're following me. So I hope, like, it is likely to feel intense, but I think allowing, like putting some healthy structures in place for us, like making sure we do like really see that our basic needs are met. Again, looking at this Virgo, so like making sure we get enough rest, making sure that the food we eat is supporting us, making sure that we're having healthy movement. Those kinds of things are really going to help us out here. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, if it is feeling intense, just really like lean in to those just like basic self-care practices. You know, I'm not talking about like mani-pedis and things like that. is those really like fundamental caring for ourselves kind of things. And then that is going to give us a strong foundation then to be able to allow those messages to come in, allow them a bit of like, allow our feelings to come as well. Like I said, those first few days, especially of this cycle, will probably be quite emotional. And maybe make note of that as well. Like if you're feeling emotional and things are coming up, perhaps things from the past, you know, sometimes Mars and Pluto do like to dig up things from the past as well. And like we need to be aware that Pluto is finishing off this cycle in Capricorn now that it's been in for the last 15 years, since 2008. So we are ending up a big cycle here. So like if we think back to that whole period of time, that is what is finishing now. That is what we need to kind of release aspects of now in order to like be moving forward. And then when Pluto moves into Aquarius on the 20th, it won't be going back into Capricorn for our whole lifetime. You know, this is our last 3 weeks with Pluto here in Capricorn. So it is an end. It's an ending time that is happening now, and it's an ending time that we can lean into. We can practice really good self-care so that we can lean into it. We can hold space for our emotions, and like if you do have people around you that you can lean on for that, like, you know, if you're part of the community. I know like we've got a community on Discord. We've also got a community connected with this channel on Facebook as well, which are really lovely spaces where you can share about these things if you feel like you need some support around that. You know, you can also, if you have therapists or you know, friends, you know, things like that as well, that you can gather support from, especially like I say during those first few days, which might feel extra intense. But the main thing is like not judging ourselves for that. Like you're not going crazy. It is just a process, you know, it's a process of release. And when we do release, when we let go of things, there's always like a grieving period as well. So allowing ourselves the space for that is really important. So that is the astrology. I'm going to pull some cards as well. These were the cards that came out last time. We had the Two of Pentacles and the Seven of Cups. This one was just like, it's literally the card for Venus in Scorpio, which we were working with last time. Venus is obviously in Sagittarius now, so we've like moved on from this card. And then this Two of Pentacles as well is like that kind of juggling of resources almost, you know. It's like we've been doing a bit of like restructuring our lives, restructuring our resources. We've also been like digging into some deep emotions over that last moon cycle. And for this reading for this month, I've pulled out the Midnight Magic deck, which is a tarot deck of mushrooms. I thought this one was very on point because we are dealing with that Mars Pluto and that underworldly, and like mushrooms are like, most of the mushroom like is under the ground. So I just felt like this deck was a really perfect fit for this particular moon. So, you know, all of that like mycelium is all just like putting out these networks under the ground, and then the bits that we see are just those like fruiting bodies that pop up. So yeah, I thought this was really good. I'll put a link for this deck in the description box as well. Let's get it out. So I have used this before on the channel, so you may have seen me using this one before. I did give them a little shuffle before I started the video, but I just want to, well, I haven't left myself a lot of space here. I like to put all the pretty things in so that it's nice to look at if you're watching it on the video. I know these, I'm considering turning these forecasts into like more of a podcast format, because you don't really need to be able to see the chart. Like I like to have the chart there as a visual aid more for me. And I know if you're a student of astrology, then it can be helpful definitely to look at the lunation chart, but you don't need to. You know, this is like a kind of, it is a reading in a sense of an energetic reading, using the astrology and the tarot to prepare for this cycle. So, you know, you could just be listening to it while you're walking, or I like to listen to podcasts when I'm cooking. That's the time I listen to them the most. or if I'm doing chores. So yeah, I'm considering turning it into that sort of format. I'm going to take 2 cards for this cycle. Let's see what we've got. We've got, oh wow, we've got the Empress. And we've also got the 5 of Wands. Interesting. Okay, so let's have a little look at these cards that come out. So this is the Empress. Hen of the Woods is the mushroom. You do see these. I'll read in the book actually, because it tells you like where they grow and a little bit about the mushroom. And that is why one of the things I like about this deck as well is that it obviously ties the meaning of the cards into the mushrooms. But let's just go with the Empress for now. So the Empress is connected with Taurus. So, you know, we talked about how Uranus and Taurus is kind of like churning things up at the moment. But the Empress is like the Earth Mother. So I feel like this card coming out for us is giving me an extra point of information to share with you. Like I talked about Virgo and how like having self-care will be really supportive during this moon cycle. The other thing that will be really supportive is that goddess connection. So having perhaps other people who work with goddess around you, you know, the community, but also really leaning into that divine feminine support, because when we feel like we are held by the mother, you know, it's so much easier to, it's like kind of, you know, like when you're sad or grieving and you just want to kind of like crawl up into a safe lap and just have arms around you and just be held and you know, somebody stroking your hair and saying, it's going to be okay, you know, it's going to be okay. And that is what the Empress, one of the things the Empress, the Divine Mother, can do for us. She can hold that space for us when things are confusing and overwhelming and just feeling hard, you know. So if you do have a practice where you connect with the Divine Feminine, then that would be something to really lean into as well during this moon cycle, during this month. Yeah, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. If you're in the Moonwise membership, then we'll probably talk about this, because that is something, it's a big deal, this moon cycle. So we'll lean into the support definitely in this moon cycle. And then the other card that came out is this 5 of Wands. It says it's an orange pinwheel, which is a mushroom that I'm not familiar with. I can see there's a little ladybird on here as well, which is interesting because that is another goddess, specifically like Mary connection as well. So yeah, I'm feeling like that mother goddess energy really coming through really strong. But the 5 of Wands is more about kind of like conflict as well. It's about tension that needs to lead to a resolution, you know, like the 6 of Wands, the card that comes next, is this beautiful celebration, you know, and that is what we want. Like we want to move towards the beautiful celebration, but before we can do that, there does need to be like this inner conflict. There needs to be parts of us which are sacrificed now, which are left behind now, because not all of that is going to be moving forward into this next cycle. You know, that's what I'm saying. This is a period of time now where it is a culmination of sorts, but then there also needs to be a cutting back, a pruning of things, a dropping of our leaves as we move into this next cycle. I mean, this one does look very autumnal as well. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Let's see what it says in the book about these, because it'll tell us a little bit more about the mushrooms, which might give us a little bit more to dive into as well. That's what I like about these kind of like themed decks. Sometimes they can have some really interesting things. So the Empress, Hen of the Woods, looking like a mother hen hidden beneath old oaks and maples, the hen of the woods is a plentiful food source. It's fitting then that this mushroom is connected to the Empress card, which represents motherly nurturing, abundance and protection. Creative and resourceful, hens will adapt to their environs by growing around sticks, rocks, and even other mushrooms into large edible armfuls of food that can weigh up to 30 pounds or more. So yeah, that idea of abundance, like if you see these in the woods, they are big. They're big mushrooms. This mushroom is regarded as both an ancient medicine and a delicious meal. I love that. So yes, you know, like that sometimes like food, like nurturing, is seen as being just kind of like basic in a way, you know. It's like it's not seen as being not important, but when we realize that it is also medicine, it is the medicine, it is what we need to kind of like heal, to grow now as we move forward. So motherhood, resources, nurturing, abundance. Surround yourself with things that nurture and support you on all levels, body, mind, and spirit. You are cultivating your goals into a strong, authentic reality. When you've attended to your own goals, you can find fulfillment in helping others with theirs. Interesting. The reversed, like it didn't come out reversed anyway. It says your goal may be suffering because you're over mothering someone or something. We often have good intentions, but we can get over involved in the lives of others and risk smothering or violating boundaries. Pull your energy back and meditate on why you are micromanaging. Let this self-reflection guide you like a mother's advice. So yeah, like I find that with me, and I know I've seen other women around me do the same thing as well. It's like when I'm feeling unsure sometimes, or like not solid in myself, then sometimes I do overextend myself and try and care for the people around me without doing that, like giving that same level of care to myself. And so like I feel like this is really another point to say, like we need to mother ourselves first in this cycle, rather than, you know, like it's that idea of pulling that energy back. It even says, doesn't it, pull your energy back. But you know, I was talking about the leaves and how they pull their energy back down in. We mustn't overextend now in this cycle, because it will be too much for us now. We want to be able to pull in and nurture the depths of ourselves while we're going through this transformation, through this grieving process. Yeah, let's have a look at this Five of Wands then as well. So orange pinwheel. Tests and criticism might try to smother your blaze, but like the sturdy stalk of the minuscule orange pinwheel mushroom, you must stand strong and with purpose. This card may also indicate a beneficial competition that will add kindling to the creative fire. It's making me feel like it's picking up this opposition between the two benefics, you know, that idea of like a spark between, you know, especially like we've got Venus here in the fire sign as well, and we've got Jupiter in an air sign, so we've got that air and fire feeding each other, you know, like well, the air feeding the fire. So we've got that spark, that creative spark. So like a little bit of challenge is also helpful for this cycle. You know, we are going to be challenged, but seeing it as a creative challenge, as something that is not life-threatening, is going to be much more beneficial than if we kind of like panic and don't allow that creative challenge to, like I say, to like be able to let us let go of certain things. Upright external conflict, criticism or tension. External conflicts test your character and momentum. Stay strong and loyal to the path you're on with determined focus. Criticism and tension often come with the ignition of important endeavours, but it did actually, I don't know if you noticed when I pulled it out, it did actually come out reversed. Internal conflicts, short fuses, reconnect. Upsets are causing the temperature to rise like a raucous bonfire, but listening with compassion will cool things down. Revive fading coals into cozy campfires with those you trust. So yeah, that idea of like gathering with people who are good people for you, who are nurturing people for you, is going to be really central to this moon. And also I think like that idea of scale, you know, is coming out through this card as well, of like being able to see ourselves as both big and small, you know, so that we are big in our lives, you know, like we should be the central character of our lives, and sometimes we kind of become lost on that path, you know, we're not the hero or shero of our own journey anymore, because we're so focused on like the needs of other people and nurturing the needs of other people. But then it can also go the other way as well, where we kind of, well, I find with women, people tend to do this, we become small and insignificant more. We make ourselves more small and insignificant, or we feel we are that when we're not actually that, you know. When we look around, actually, and the people who care about us, the people who love us, we're not small and insignificant to them at all. You know, we are the center of some people's worlds, you know. We are this empress, we are this source of food, this source of medicine. But in order to be able to do that and to grow, we need to attend to our own needs, and that and creatively attend to our own needs. And that is what the opportunity that's being presented to us in this in this moon cycle now. So yes, it is likely to feel intense. The emotions will probably be high, especially at the beginning of the month. Lean into self-care, lean into taking great care of yourself first, so that you can then be who you want to be moving forward. But there is a shedding that is taking place now, and there is a grieving that is taking place now in this moon cycle. So allow that. Have networks of support, and yeah, allow it. Don't judge yourself for it, because there's nothing wrong. This is how it is meant to be. This is how it's meant to be. So I hope that was helpful. If you do have any comments, please do let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Warmest blessings, and I will see you very soon.